Hey guys, Joe Saunders here from the Managing Violence podcast. I hope you're all doing well. If you're in isolation at the moment or in self-lockdown or quarantine or whatever's going on in your particular environment, in your state, your county, your country, whatever challenges you're currently facing, please know that we're here with you. And hey, we're all in the same boat here. My kids are home from school and it's chaos in my family at the moment. But I have my little sanctuary here in my office, which I'm rapidly considering installing a lockable door on because, keeping children out it's suddenly become a bit more of a priority. Anyway, what I wanted to talk to you about today is a review of a book. I'm hoping to do more of these over the next couple of weeks. As I know, many of us are no longer able to train physically, at least not with other people. And because of that, one of the best things we can do to continue building our skills and continuing our development is to read or to watch DVDs or instructionals or VHS tapes. I don't know. I've got some cool VHS tapes. I don't have anything to play them on anymore, but they're out there. I'm sure if you've got a VCR, you can learn stuff from VHS tapes. Anyway, one thing that we can all do is read a good book. And to start off with, the first Managing Violence book review that I want to do is on this book, Survivor Shooting: Strategies to Survive Active Shooters and Terrorist Attacks by Alain Burrese. Now, Alain is going to be a guest on the podcast coming up. He's going to be season 4, episode 10. If that hasn't already come out when you're reading this, then that's when Alan's going to be on. This is quite a sizable book, right? You could quite easily slip this into a plate carrier and have protection against a shooting. That's already got the bullet holes already right there. Look at that. But this is quite a sizable book. It's a massive undertaking. It's a great piece of work, and I think it's worthwhile getting. But let's have a look at why I think that. Alan was very kind and sent me a copy for review. I said, look, just send me the ebook. It's fine. And he insisted on sending me the physical version because it is quite impressive. It's quite heavy. It's a big chunk of work. There are a lot of things I like about this book and not many things I don't like. So just quickly, the book is comprehensive. It's really comprehensive. It goes through a lot of things I haven't seen in a lot of other shooting products or active shooter prevention or active shooter management products. I've done a lot of them. I've read a lot of these books. I've been on a few courses. We teach an element of it here within my company. But oftentimes the learning materials are quite brief. And there's a reason for that, and we'll get to that later. But one of the things that I like about Alan's book is that he doesn't spare any attention to detail. There's a lot of detail about the history of active armed defender situations, active shooter, active killer. That is one thing that he stresses is that it's not about shooting. It's not about the weapon. It's about the intent to cause mass casualties. And the principles that are in this book are equally applicable whether you're dealing with a firearm threat, an edge weapon threat, and there's even sections or annexes in the back about dealing with vehicles, terrorists, etc., and various other modes of attack. So the principles do carry over, but Alan goes into great detail to explain the history of mass casualty events, in particular in the US and some outside the US as well. So that is a really interesting read. If it's not something that you are overly familiar with and you think that mass shootings or mass killing events are a modern phenomena, you'll be quite interested to know that there's a history that goes back hundreds of years when it comes to mass killing attacks, especially in vulnerable areas like churches and schools, which is where obviously we're seeing the majority of them in the US at least. So that's the first thing I like. The second thing that I really like about this book is that it's apolitical. It doesn't draw a line about whether we should have gun control, whether you shouldn't have gun control, left versus right. It doesn't matter. This is a practitioner's guide. This is for someone who wants to know, what should I be teaching people? What should I be skilling up my people to know? How do I lead a response to survivor shooting? Not about who do I elect or what policies should I be looking for. This is a practical guide. And I really like that, especially at the moment when everything is so political. It's really nice and refreshing to not have that. Another thing that I think is really useful is that the book goes beyond just the immediate response phase. It goes into planning. It goes into messaging systems. How do we create good communication within our community? How do we communicate that there's an issue? How do we build rapport and establish relationships with first responders, with authorities that may be coming into campus or onto our site? How do we train our people to interact with those people when they do arrive? We look at all sorts of different areas that aren't just, there's a bad guy with a gun, what do you do? Okay, it's a lot of prevention, deterrence, making yourself a hard target, making your place a hard target, and really encouraging a predator to pick somewhere else, as sad as that is. I mean, that's, if everybody does it, there's nowhere to shoot. So, it's a good strategy. So that's really cool. The other thing that I really like, there's a lot of really cool information about red flags, about looking for troubling behaviors, whether it's with employees, whether it's with students, whether it's with other people that frequent your establishment, red flags of suspicious behaviors. There's a lot of really good content around that. Drawing the connection between domestic shootings and terrorism. When is a domestic shooting a terrorist event? When is it not a terrorist event? Whether you need to know that practically or not, it's still interesting for someone like me to see that articulated really clearly. Probably the thing that I like the most about this book is that it doesn't try to reinvent the wheel too much. So it's a sizable book, and a good chunk of that size is that Alain has gone to great lengths to summarize the best material that's currently out there. So he has referenced Christensen, he's referenced all the Secret Service, he's referenced Homeland Security, he's referenced all the different departments and agencies and different guidelines and standards that have been released, at least in the United States, about, and also the UK to a lesser extent. But he's referenced all of these different sources to show you a plethora of what is out there, what does good look like, or what is the standard, and then once we've gone through that, then unpacked that into the model that he believes is superior. And I think that's really useful because as a serious practitioner or someone who might be looking to build an active armed defender management or active killer management program or training program or induction for your place of worship or your school or your facility or your clients, it is really useful to have a broad depth of knowledge and to be able to see, maybe you don't agree necessarily with everything Alain says that he likes, but you'll have plenty in this book to be able to look at how other people are doing it, what advice they're giving, and dissect and pick and choose what's going to be right for your situation. As an Australian, we have completely different relationships with active killer events than the US does. So there's elements in this book that I don't think would be a fit for the Australian market. They would need some massaging, a little bit of adjusting to be able to make it tolerable and palatable for the market. But the principles are very, very sound. Another thing that I really like, and we'll talk about this on the podcast with Alain, sorry, I just want to get the terminology correctly, is Alain has moved beyond the escape, hide, tell, or so the escape, run, hide, fight, which is the US one, escape, hide, tell being the Australian one. There's a UK one that's pretty similar. And he's moved beyond that to escape, deny, attack back. And he goes into quite a lot of detail about the power of words and the phrasings that we use, and that he feels that escape, deny, and attack back are proactive words that empower people to take action as opposed to being reactive. And I really like that. I like that terminology. Also, by changing run to escape, I think that works well because escaping might be crawling, it might be climbing, it might be scaling, it might be descending. It could be a lot of things that aren't running. All right, and running blindly is not a good strategy. So I like the idea of escape. Denying instead of hiding. Hiding is a failed strategy in isolation. If you just hide and wait, it's good luck essentially if you survive. Denying, being able to deny access, whether it be locking down, evacuating, barricading doors. Alain goes into a bunch of improvised barricading techniques as well as commercial products which are on the market. Those are very useful and interesting. But being able to deny access of the killer to be able to get to a particular group, that's really cool. And also attack back. So rather than fight, it's about attack back. It's doing whatever is necessary to take out the attacker with whatever you have available to you, whatever improvised weapons you have. There's some pretty cool tricks with a fire extinguisher, which I hadn't seen in another book previously. So I'm a big fan of his fire extinguisher work. I'm going to steal some of that. Sorry, Alan. But the fire extinguisher is quite interesting, especially here for Australian audiences where we can't have firearms in buildings. We don't have armed security nearly anywhere. But there's always a fire extinguisher. And it's pretty easy to convince clients to buy more fire extinguishers. So that's a pretty interesting tip that I've taken away. But the escape, deny, attack back model, and also rather than making it a linear progression between escape, deny, attack back, escape, deny, attack back. I'm not sure which way this is going to go on the screen. 1, escape, 2, deny, 3, attack back. Alain has moved away from the linear model and presented it as a triangle with arrows going in all different directions, because at any given time you may have to change strategy from escape to deny, deny to attack back to escape. There's a whole variety of situations, and each one is going to call for a different and ever-evolving response. And that is super important, and I really like that. And the key to all of that in between in that model is movement, getting off the X, getting away from the site, getting away from the danger zone. So that's really cool. I enjoy that as well. Also, the aftermath of the incident, there's detail about how to stop bleeding, how to control hemorrhaging, how to save lives, so that you are able to act in the absence of trained medical personnel, because a lot of civilians don't realize that when police or law enforcement are on site, their job is not to save the wounded, their job is to go find the bad guy. And until that bad guy is all clear and contained, whether they're killed or whether they're arrested, and the police are happy that there's no other offenders on site, only when that has occurred will they give the green light for paramedics to come on site and start treating the wounded. So we could have quite an extensive delay between first responders arriving and treatment being provided to the wounded. So it is incredibly important that we get civilians to be able to provide that care as much as possible. And that's, again, a super important part. Also in the aftermath, dealing with law enforcement, how to respond, how to declare that you are not the enemy, how that changes if you happen to have a weapon in your hand, whether you are a concealed carry or whether you have disarmed the offender and you're now holding their weapon. This can go wrong very easily. So super important topic again. I know I'm saying that a lot, but all of this stuff is important. Alain has done a tremendous job in, I think, giving the most comprehensive full picture of what to do at different stages. I mean, as I said, it's a 300+ page book. I think from my reading, from the books I've read, most of the good ones are actually summarized and referenced in this one. So that alone makes it one of the more comprehensive books. But I think from beginning to end, about planning, messaging, response, and then aftermath, I haven't read a better book on shootings and surviving a shooting than Survive a Shooting by Alain Burrese. The only negative, there's only one con that I listed. I read this book over a period of a couple of weeks, just going through and dissecting and taking notes. And I tried to create a list of pros and cons. There's only two things that I identified as cons, and they're both connected. So firstly, if you are not a practitioner in this field, it might be overwhelming because it's not a straightforward handbook. This is not a 50-page, here's what you do and here's how you do it. This is an exploration of a topic to give you a lot of different options, a lot of different information, and to guide you in a direction that is probably going to be best. But it's going to take some time for you to read and understand and make your own decisions about what is the best way forward. This is not a cookie cutter downloadable PDF plan to be able to establish an active shooter program within your facility. So if you're looking for that, that's probably a con. If you're not looking for that, for me, it's a pro. I've read a lot of those. There's not a lot new under the sun when it comes to those sorts of plans. So I really appreciate the fact that this went a bit deeper and gave a variety. And the only other con which was connected with that is it may be confusing because there are a variety of approaches outlined in each section. It may be confusing if you don't go in with the mindset of, I'm going to see a lot of things and then it's going to be culled down. If you're just looking for a pick up, quick glance, this is what I write, or this is what I do, or this is what I teach, it may be confusing for you, but that again comes back to you and what you're looking to get out of this book. So I'm trying to give you a very honest review so that the people that can most benefit from this book will be the ones that buy it. As I said, I've read probably 20 books that are just about active armed offenders. I've done a variety of courses and online learnings and so on this topic. And for me, this is probably the most comprehensive product on the market. So thank you again to Alain for sending it through to me. One sec. I think I've even got, there we go, signed copy. Number 196 of 250. There's only 195 people in the world luckier than me. Thank you, Alain. That's it. Highly recommended book. Check it out. It's available on Amazon. Survivor Shooting by Alain Burrese. Check out the episode of the podcast. It'll be out very, very soon, if it's not out already by the time you see this. And stay safe, guys. Talk to you soon.